session today because in today's scenario, the innovativeness is very important. When I'm talking about innovativeness, so it is applicable in all the senses, like, if whether it is concerned to my lectures, whether it is concerned to my, technological usage, and most importantly, the students are also very tech savvy, wherein we have to understand, that whatever sessions, whatever content that we are going to deliver, it has to be on technological driven, and that is where it has to be convincing, in a sense that whatever things that we are trying to teach, we should have a flavor of innovativeness, we should have the flavor of practicalness, and that is where we can make out in a better prospect, right? So that is where we must have to think about innovative teaching methods. Okay, so with this, we have to understand first, we have to start with basic idea about education and teaching. So we need to understand that, education has a significant role in all the aspect, whether I need to take into consideration about the student's perspective, and that is going to be the final product for the corporates, in the coming future. And that is where they are also making a significant contribution as far as the employment generation as well as the employment seekers, right? So being an employment generator, they are providing employment in terms of becoming an entrepreneur, and in terms of employment seeker, they will become a manager, that is called intrapreneur, wherein they are managing their teams, and they're working for their organization, right? So overall, they are contributing towards the productivity of the GDP of the nation, and that is where they are going to contribute in terms of economical development. And in all this aspect, which is very important, is the teaching, right? Which is very essential tools and techniques for all of us, right? And that is where effective teaching does not means to have the sharing of the content to the students, but it also covers the deeper technicalities and learners' progress into their life. So that is what we have to understand, that if he talks about effective teachings, so effective teaching doesn't mean that we just have refer the syllabus, and based on the syllabus we have prepared some material and simply we have shared with the students, right? But as far as this education training is concerned, we also need to cover up the deeper technicalities of all the courses, all the content that we have it. And at the same time, the learner progress also needs to be taken into consideration. That is where it is going to be beneficial to ourselves. Then what is innovative teaching learning as far as the thing is concerned? So innovative teaching and learning is concerned. So these are the important payout and these are the important takeouts that we must have to understand, that we have to understand this terminologies of stress. So why we need to understand the terminologies of stress? Because in today's scenario, we must have to make our students to be ready to bear some stress, bear some they would be able to take out something which is going to be very useful for all of us, right? So that is where we must have to think about it, right? Then it also needs to be taken into consideration, like they should not get frustrated, right, in any of the courses, right? So that is where we must have to think about it, and we must have to make them ready for the better prospects and better futures in the coming period. That is where we have to understand. Fifth is understand the types and effects of stress. So we have to understand, like what kind of stress the students can have it, due to which factor the students might have been facing stress, right? So these are all important parameters and these are all important prospects that we have to guide the students before they fall into this kind of stress. And according to this, we have to guide them in a proper way, right? Then we also need to understand the correlation of teachers and stress, right? We must have to take into consideration that students are the coming future for the nation. We must have to guide them, we must have to mold them, we must have to build them. That is the moral responsibilities of us being a teacher and mentor. So first of all, the first thing that we have to train them is to bear any situation that they have to face in life. That is where they can understand and they can bear the the stress and the difficult level for each task that they have to perform in their corporate life, right? So that is where the correlation of teachers and stress is very highly interacted with each other. Self stress assessment, right? Students should also be aware about how much stress that they are taking. Most importantly, along with the stress, how much stress bearing capacity that they are holding. And this kind of stress removal strategies or self-bearing capacity will come into their mind only when they are aware about the multiple facet of the teaching and learning pedagogy through which they have gained some practical knowledge. They must have undergone the various prospect and problems for various things, right? So that is where we have to have a self-assessment for this kind of things. Fifth is user-friendly environments. Very important that innovative teaching and learning pedagogy is always help us to make the teaching and learning to be more user-friendly, and that is where this kind of props and tools are going to make the teaching learning environment of the classroom more in terms of user-friendly, so that the interest of the topic, the curiosity in the minds of students is always going to help you out, and that are more focused towards the various things that they have to learn, right? So that is where we have to make these things user friendly for the students perspective. Okay, then remedies, right? So what remedies we have to follow up, that is the things we have to understand. Types of teaching methods. Conventional teaching methods, that is what is conventional teaching method is. Active students participation is must, right? So whenever we are talking about innovative teaching and learning, we must have to focus on conventional teaching method. This is one of the way where we can have the active involvement, active engagement of the students in this particular scenario. What is conventional teaching learning method? So the second point is it is less to long-term knowledge, right? So conventional teaching method is not that much focusing on long-term knowledge, but they are focusing upon the current scenario, facts and figures, and that is what we have to work out. Individual study. Moreover, it is prone towards individual study. Same topic, same time, right? Whatever topic you are learning, at that time, you will learn that things. You will not talk about anything else, right? So that is what the conventional teaching. And it is mostly based on concept study, which is theoretical based, which have some underlying theories, which have some concepts, right? When in non-conventional teaching method, if it talks about, so it is well prepared for the students, right? There is no propaganda which is going to be fixed. Depend upon the situation, depend upon the demands of the time period, right? And the curiosity that students are creating in their mind. So according to that, we are making some changes. And most importantly, we are trying to fit to the situation, whatever content prospects that we have to teach to our students, right? So that is where it is well prepared for the students, not for large group of students, right? The conventional teaching is not for so large group of students, it is for the limited students. Because very important is this conventional teaching is mostly focusing upon the shared classroom teaching learning method, whether the students are 60 hundreds, so right, so they are not focusing on that, right? They are not creating those class into the small batches, right? Whereas non-conventional teaching is creating, or rather it is focusing on the limited audience for each class, wherein the concentrations towards each of the students can be possible in a better manner, and that is how the creativity can be generated, the conceptual clarity can be generated, and that is how it is going to be useful. Good for academically strong students, right? It is always good for having academically strong students that we have it, right? So that is where we must have to work out that if this non-conventional teaching methods that we are talking about, we must have to think in terms of whether this is good for academically for strong students or not, right? If it is good, we should work out. If it is not good, we must have to have second thoughts. Numerous choice for topics when we talks about non-conventional teaching methods, right? In non-conventional teaching method is not restricted up to certain level, right? But it is, right, it is like what we can do it for the students. That is where numerous choice for the various topics that we have it, that we also have to think about it, clear? and based on real world scenario, right? So non-conventional teaching is always going to be considered to be non-conventional teaching methods. So that is where we are also dragging students for whatever concept and things that we are teaching, we are dragging them towards the real term scenario, right? So that is how it is also going to help you out in a biggest way, right? So that is where you must have to think about the various types of teaching methods with their characteristics, right? So that is what the types of teaching, right? So based on the consideration of conventional and non-conventional teaching, right? So the basic difference that we can portray over here is the conventional teaching is more student friendly. It is just focusing upon the process, wherein the outcomes and results are less priority. But if it talks about non-conventional teaching, so it is more towards focused approach, focused learning, innovative tools that we have to adopt, and at the same time it try to give the examples for the real-time scenario, and at the same time it will help you out to generate the fruitful results, right? So this is how the difference between conventional and non-conventional teaching methods that we have decided. Characteristics of both teaching methods. So conventional teaching methods, it is learning from memorization. So typical classroom teaching methods that we are doing, right? Learning is abstract, right? So out of entire section or entire chapter that you are going to, mesmerize in the classroom, you just need to summarize it, right? Because you are not checking on the other part of the real world, what is happening, what is not happening, what is the facts and figures of whatever content that we are learning in the classroom, right? So this is like abstract, it's just a theoretical point of view. That is what it is saying, that it is a theoretical. Teachers decides the course of learning, right? In this case, teachers has to decide what is required, it has less relevance in terms of what is required in terms of real-time situation, right? What teacher feel comfortable, they will decide what is there, right? Student interaction is less, right? Typically it is focused on the classroom teaching, right, where the lecture methods are going on and where the faculty is continuously speaking and students are listening, right? But somehow we know we are so more aggressive in terms of learning for any session, we can psychological focused upon 45 minutes or less than that. Beyond 45 minutes, we will lost our concentration, right? And that is where this teaching method is less effective in terms of generating the overall understanding in terms of the teaching and learning methods that we have to do it, right? Good behavior based on extrinsic motivation. That means if the students are highly motivated, they will behave good for some times. If we extend our lectures for beyond 45 minutes or something, they will lose their concentration and they are less impacted, they are less interested in all such kind of things, right? So that is where in extrinsic motivation is less, where in non-conventional teaching, it is peer assisted learning. The subject would be taught by only those people who are having the practical understanding or practical, knowledge about the content, or they are more prone towards, practicing this kind of knowledge. Problem-based learning. So you have been forced to learn from the various problems and prospects that you are, gaining out of it. So that is where it is based on the problem-based learning. Team-based learning, you can also learn this from the team. You have multiple people, multiple things, and out of these things, you will learn out of this, right? So you will learn from the experience of different people. You will also gain some knowledge from, the what other people are having some knowledge on this aspect. So it is an overall shared based learning, and that is where you can focus upon the team based learning process that you have to do it. Small group discussion, again, non-conventional teaching can also be happen with the small group discussion, right? So you might have the small group of people wherein you have to, put all the peoples together. You should have some discussion on some topics. You give some topics, people will share their knowledge. So instead of teaching them from only the books and all this prospect, rather than we are forcing them to have a critical thinking, critical evaluation, take out some real time real based case studies scenario, right? And that is what they are trying to share with each other, and that is where the group discussion is happening. Group discussion is possible. So that is where small group discussion is also going to happen. Flipped classroom, you can flip the classroom, right? So instead of, students learn in the classroom, right, you should force them to go outside, observe the scenario, ask some questions, learn from that particular scenario, and try to initiate or try to incorporate the relationship between the content that you have learned in the classroom and the content that you have experienced in the real time scenario, right? So that is where we have changed the mode of classroom and we force them to go outside and learn the things. Computer assisted methods of teaching, obviously, today is a scenario of AI. Today is a period of AI, artificial intelligence. So with teaching and learning without AI, can't imagine, right? So it is very necessary for all the students and teachers to learn all the AI tools which are helpful then for all the works that they have to do in terms of preparing teaching materials or all the administrative tasks that they have to perform as a part of teaching learning process. So that is where it is computer assisted method of teaching. So methods of innovative teaching. The first is personalized learning. So you should have personalized learning in terms of self-evaluation in terms of what, when, how, and that you have to teach to the students. Rather, I can say you should always teach your students about whatever concept that you are teaching. You should always create one habitus. We should always make them to think about 5W2H, right? That is why this happened, what happens, when it happens, where it happens, why it happens, and how much time it happens and how many time it has been repeated, right? So this is where all the things, all the prospects and things that we have to learn, we have already gone through it. So it will create more understanding in terms of the concept that we have to digest as a part of teaching learning, right? So rather than using simple approach, we should plan the entire class, and we must need to exist all this discussion based on the capacity of the particular students to whom we are teaching, right? And that is how this journey is going to be unique, and finally it focused upon the proficiency of this subject, and it helps to achieve the grade levels at its benchmark. Then strategies of personalized teaching. So blended learning. So it gives the students more responsibilities over their own learning, with the teachers functions as a general guide and oversees over a more discovery based learning, right? So we are forcing them to discover something, to experiment something, and out of the cause and effect relations that they are experiencing, whether it could be based on the data, whether it could be experiment on the labs also, chahe it is a physics lab or chemistry lab, or it is a data lab wherein we can work with the data as well, wherein we are trying to establish the relation, and we are checking the impact of each variables, right? And that is where students are allowed to choose how and at what pace they move through the content, right? So during this workout, during this phase, students will learn how the things are moving, how the things are happening, and that is where how the content needs to be grabbed, right? So that is where it is called blended learning. So adaptive learning. So adaptive learning is it collects the data from students' responses to specific questions on a computer. Then the software uses that information to provide immediate feedback, right? So that is called adaptive learning, right? So once you have the data, right, or must be you have some observation even from the blended learning, wherein you have experimented certain things on a lab, and for every experimentations, you must have some output, right? You must have some results, right? So you must have note down those results, and those results you again try to analyze based on various research software, or even in today's scenario you can also use some AI tools, right? So that kind of data will provide the immediate effect or understanding about the particular trials that we have learned or the particular trials that we have done on immediate basis, right? So that is where you have to see the feedbacks or adoptions for the students and notifies the teachers so that they can change the lesson plan accordingly, right? So you should have some props, you should have some things that continuous learning of teaching is going to happen, and that is where it is called adaptive learning. Project based learning. Right. So what is project-based learning? So it requires students to identify real-world problems and then divide a solution, right? So every stream is having such kind of teaching learning pedagogy, I think, as per NEP 2020, right? we have some comprehensive project, we must have some internships either from summer or it should be winter. We are sending students for in a corporate for as a part of internship, and we are forcing them to learn the real time and practical scenario of all the concept that they have to learn in the classroom, right? So that is where students have been forced to learn this kind of things, and that is where we have to understand that this is going to be very very important for all of us. Yeah. Fine. So built on the development of specific transferable skills such as research, critical thinking, problem solving, and cooperations, right? So you must have to think about all this development that is focusing upon the real-time problems, and students have been forced to solve this problem. And that is where they can understand the concept, they can understand the difficulties during this phase, and how the ultimate outcomes is going to be helpful to the society, right? So that is where it is a synchronized process that students will do it based on project based learning. And that is where one of the most important parameter of this project based learning is you will find the most active engagement of the students for particular forming this project. And that is where they will gain some expertise via implementation of their knowledge rather than rote memorization, right? And that is where the teaching with these methods link students and schools to their communities and outside world, which demonstrate how all disciplines are interlinked and creating opportunities to experience learning facing real situations rather than contrived examples, right? Okay. Jigsaw, right? It's a small group of people that we are creating. So instead of giving those projects to the entire class, right, on a common platform, we can do some innovative, we can go some in-depth learning approach as a part of Jigsaw, right? Where in Jigsaw, we are trying to create small group of people, where the small group of people will merge together and they will try to experiment on this particular aspect. That is where it is going to be true cooperative learning. That is where students will learn various sort of skills. Students not only learn what is the technicalities of the concept that we have to think about it, but most importantly, which is the need of the corporate life, which is the need of the requirement for all the corporates, or wherever students are going to portray themselves for the future aspect in terms of their teaching learning, right? So that is the cooperativeness, right, with the colleagues, the management skills that they have to make it out by meeting all the deadlines, and with a small group of people, how to get most important ideas out of the topic that we have it and the literature that we have it, and how these things is going to be modulized or reframe it in a things or in a manner it has to be required, right? So that is where it is going to be helpful to us. Each individual's members then need to be discussed what they have learned, bringing the techniques of teaching, learning by interacting with one another and the content. The only con to this method is when the expert in a group misinterprets the facts or it's not able to teach others as well, right? So if the people out of this expert group are inefficient in a case, then it would not be, So Jigsaw is a kind of teaching learning method wherein you can apply to the senior batch of students where they have certain amount of knowledge of the particular topic that we are going to portray, right? If they are new to the system, if they are new to this one particular concept, so I think it would be difficult for them to bring out some expertise as a part of knowledge sharing for the target audience, right? So that is what we have to see out, and this is what the limitation of Jigsaw methods. Asking open-ended questions, right? That is what I was saying. 5W2H: who, why, where, what, how, and how many, right? So that is what if you ask those kind of questions, you have almost touched upon the reasons, timings, you know, locations, the person, right, and the reasons, right, and the number of things that you need to identify, right? That is 5WTS, right? Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And this kind of discussion should always be promoted by the teachers by asking these open-ended questions, wherein if you ask close-ended questions to the students, they have been restricted their opinion or their perspective to the limited level, right? But if the same thing you can make it out in an open-ended questions, right, in an open manner, So students are free to do it, right? Students feel that they are free to discuss anything and everything that they have to discuss. So that is where open-ended question needs to be discussed. Students can put together cohesive elements based on their own knowledge as well as present information, together a solution which they can support using evidence. And this can help students not to just to find out their voice, but also to express themselves and support their reasonings, right? Flipping the classroom. So you need to change the perspective of the classroom. Who say that you need to run the classroom in a monotonous way? You can adjust the classroom being a mentor in a manner or in a things that you feel to be required to have, meaningful teaching learning discussion, which brings out some research based approach in terms of the applications of research. Either it could be finding data or to have some discussion on facts and figures among the group of people, and then you should finally connect to the class, right? So you can divide the students in a small group of people, and you are free to discuss the things which you have to discuss, right? So that is where we should set aside the standard lectures methods that we are focusing upon, and rather we should spend more time on the research application and the assessment, right? Out of that, if this method have been adopted, how the improvement have been noted in terms of students by having cross questioning, right? And that is how you can understand that whatever teaching and learning method that you are trying to portray among the students, are they effective or not, right? So that is where you have to bring them into outside the classroom. That is where the topic needs to be given. Once they read the topic, they are almost aware about the theoretical fundamentals. Then they will go to the outside and they will observe the scenario based on the theory that they have learned. So they are better people, they are better verse of to have the alignment between what is theoretical things that they have learned and how the theoretical knowledge is going to be applicable in terms of practical scenario, right? So they can understand the importance of the topic, application of that topic to the industry, corporates, and how the improvements can be noted as a part of the entire situation that they have observed, right? So if they are clear at this level with this kind of observation, so I think that they will have add-ons values into their corporate life, right? So that is where it is required, right? That is called research elements and broad perspective of any topic or content that we are discussing among each other, right? So that is where the class time you always have to utilize being a faculty, being a mentor, right? Which have some meaningful discussion, right? Let's say they have been came out from the market after having practical observation of the particular topic or scenario, then we must have to create a group of people and let them allow to have a group discussion among each other. Let them share the experience, let them share their benefits, let them share their demerits, and let them finally come to the conclusion that what was good for this and what was bad for this. What is good needs to be improved, needs to be continued, and what is bad needs to have improvement. So this is how they can enhance their productivity when they will be out in the class, market, and that is where they can become a good finished product from the academic institute when they are going, and either from the placement side or either they are getting a job or they are getting an increment in terms of their performance, right? QR codes, right? You can also develop some QR codes for having all grades, like who can utilize this QR code. So QR code is utilized for many aspects, right? If you want to do the survey, right, for getting responses, to cast a vote for certain things. Let's say if you want to get the responses from the students about the classroom that we have, conducted based on their application. So we are also taking some feedback, right? Participant feedback or students feedback, right? So QR code can be, made out, and that QR code needs to be shared among the participants, right? And that is where, you can also get the video access from the QR code as well, survey form, right? So all materials, also various textbooks needs to be scanned and scanned. You can share it out. So this is how it is going to happen. Inquiry based teaching learning. So if you are going with the inquiry based teaching learning, so it is simply asking or she wishes to learn, right? Instead of assuming that I have to teach them this, we should go with the reverse engineering, and we should ask the students that what is their requirements, what is their opinion, what is their observations by having some visits at different locations, and based on that they might have perceived some values, some perspective in their minds in terms of learning different methods, different way of teaching learning methods, right? So that is how the students can differentiate, students can initiate, and students can suggest as well, right, that what methods they are comfortable with and what methods they are finding most fruitful for them. So that is where you are asking students in terms of their wish. The main purpose of this inquiry based teaching learning is, if you teach students in a manner they want, they are more happy in terms of learning all things, right? So that is where they are more happy, they are more engaged themselves into such kind of things, right? So that is where it creates the curiosity in the minds of students, right? So if you create some curiosity in the minds of students, it always going to provide some fruitful results for the future aspect, right? So that is what we have to see to it. Stimulating students' curiosity is a far more essential and challenging task than simply delivering facts, right? So to deliver fact is very easy, but to digest or to moralize the curiosity of students is very important, right? If you, it's okay if somehow you have to sacrifice with some facts and figures for 5-10%, but if you are teaching in a manner that students want, then it creates some more productivity, right? But it's not every time it is going to be correct, because ultimately we being a mentor, we also know that what is required. But yes, to begin with, we should always satisfy them, you should always stop their curiosity, and gradually you have to turn up them in a manner that you want, right, which you feel that being your experienced person, that this method is going to be more fruitful, so that the confidence level among you and students, the rapport among we and students is going to be developed, and that is how whatever we tell to them, they will convinced, and once they are convinced, then only the fruitful results and the productive outcomes can be gettable. So that is where we have to work out. Cognitive talents, critical thinking, which we call, that needs to be developed as a good understanding of all the subjects. So students should develop the critical thinking abilities for all the topics and subjects that they have to learn. And that is where they can connect all the concept with the real-time situation, right? So that is what we have think about it in the previous slides. So that is where inquiry-based teaching learning. So you ask the question first. You must have observed some things. It's just like a research that we are doing it. We are making some rough research problems or ideas that we have observed in our nearest surrounding. Based on what we have observed, right, we try to ask them, right? Or rather, we should try to find out the real-time problems for this particular thing, right? Whatever problems that we have find out, we should try to investigate, right? We should go for investigation of this problem, right? So that is where investigation is going to happen, right? So that is where we investigate entire problems, things which is happening in this entire cycle. Once we investigate those things, we'll try to create some solutions or some sort of things which is required as a part of things. Then whatever we have created out of the models or solutions things, we will try to discuss among each others. We should also discuss with our mentors. We should also discuss these things with our colleagues, and we should also discuss with some experts, right, in the subject area or domain which we are belonging. Either we can drop the email, or either we can take the appointment and we can have the personal visit. And we should discuss among the problem and prospects that we have noticed during the entire process that we have done until now. So based on the entire chain and entire activity that we have done it, so the expert, right, who have observed these particular things, they will try to discuss with you, right? And whatever discussion is there, it is based on why you have done it, what you have done it, how you have done it, and ultimately what you are ultimately getting, right, as a part of your students' productivity, right? That needs to be discussed, and whatever discussion will happen, it will reflect in terms of our satisfaction or dissatisfaction, right? If whatever activity that we have done it based on the problems that we have identified, and if during this activity, if the people are happy, if the people are satisfied, you know you are reflecting your satisfaction, you are reflecting your pleasure, right? If you are dissatisfied, then you are reflecting to your dissatisfaction, right? So this is how it is going to happen, right? Okay, and then again, you this is for, see, entire learning is for long term, right? Nothing is for short term, nothing is for long term, right? So that is how this is the entire chain that we have to work out, right? And this is how, again, if you are happy, if you are satisfied, and if you have gained certain knowledge in certain area, then again the some problem will arise based on the new invention, new innovation that is going to be take place in some period of time. And then again, the curiosity will start and you will start asking the question again and again. So this is how the entire chain of asking questions and all this aspect is going to run up, right? So this is how the entire process is working, right? Okay, yeah, anything that you have, any problems or anything which you have not understood in this aspect, any opinion, anything which you want to share, please. Any questions for this? Any problem? Any questions? Clear? Okay. So let's go ahead. Fine. Then culturally inclusive teaching, right? Very important. Wherever you go, right, you should always touch upon the culture, identity, the sensitivity of the culture, backgrounds, right? And the languages, and uh, religious aspect, right? So everywhere you should respect to your target audience wherever you are going, as a part of, as a mentor, as a teacher, as an expert, right? Because that always attach with the emotion and sentiments of the people, and that is where you should be very cultural sensitive as far as the location that you are picking up for your teaching learning process, right? So that is where you have to respect, right? That is where teaching is difficult due to the students are from the different backgrounds, right, and diverse field, right? So if you speak good something about some field, the other people are going to be demoralized or they are going to be dissatisfied, right? So being a student, being a faculty, being a teacher, you can't do this kind of crimes as a whole. Students are required unique and acquire educational knowledge differently. So culturally, this education connects the subject matters to the culture of the students, establishing a personal connections. So teachers can get to know the students, their cultural background, and some basic cultural information. Then it uses examples and exercise to connect their study topic on different cultures. Note that incorporating different cultures must be done deliberately and in a manner that respect and promotes diversity in the classroom, right? So this is how the culturally inclusive teaching methods is going to be helpful to us. Flexible learning environment. So teachers should know how to use their classroom for different instructional approaches. For example, when teachers are willing to change the furniture around in the classroom, they may discover that it is a critical variable for boosting students' learning, right? As the education has changed, the classroom space must allow opportunities to students to work alone, communicate with their peers, and collaborate, right? I always say that research is a collaborative efforts, learning is a collaborative efforts, because in spite of getting things from individual way, you should always things to be discussed from the mutual concern, wherein you will try to learn new concept, new techniques, new innovations, new concepts, and that is where we can enhance our knowledge skills even without learning anything out of the classroom, right? We also learn from the experience of the people, right? And those kind of learnings are quite impressive, quite effective in terms of typical teaching learning process is happening in the classroom, right? So that is where we should impose more importance on such kind of teaching learning process. Many classroom, if it talks about today, are packed, cluttered, and noisy environment, because when we are having physical classroom with a typical teaching learning method, the administrative task from the teacher's perspective is always going to be high, right? Because we all are aware about it, right? Because if the students are having the strength of 60 or 70, it is very difficult to monitor them. It is very difficult to protect them. It is very difficult to manage them, right? So that is where it required some communication breakdowns and other barriers to concentrations and understanding, right? So this kind of things is happening. So learning environment should maintain fluidity to facilitate one-on-one learning, collaboration, free thinking, and group, uh, you know, group discussion. Rather, I can say that is debates, right? So that is where we also have to work out on this particular aspect. So that is where it should be flexible in a sense. We should always work out on the real-time requirements of teaching learning. If we feel that this kind of method is going to be fruitful, we should always try to incorporate rather than waiting for the next moment, right? That is where the efficiency of the teacher is going to be matters. That is where the experience of the teacher is going to matter, because situational based teaching learning process is always going to be beneficial for the student's perspective. Just like if he takes about the example of COVID-19, right? So just remember when COVID-19 has entered into Indian market, right? So who has thought about
खरंय का ते?
in
Participants, kindly hold on. There is a small technical glitch. Sir will be joining us shortly. Sir, am I audible, sir?
yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah. I hope my screen is visible,
Yes, sir.
right? So that what I was talking about, like the before COVID-19, we have not even thought about to have our session on this kind of Google Meet, you know, Skype, Zoom, and all this, right? Although Skype was utilized for social media platform, but it was not utilized for any teaching learning pedagogy. But yes, after COVID-19, it has changed drastically. Now it is very difficult to think about the education teaching learning process without the tools, right? That is, this Zoom, Google Meet, and all this aspect, right? Today, when we are sitting across the different places, but we have been attached with all of us together. After having our working time, we are learning for our own enhancement, right? So this has been possible with ICT tools, and that is where we must have to enhance our capacity, and that is where the flexible classroom teaching learning methods is always going to be helpful, wherein multiple freedoms has been provided to each other, wherein one-to-one learning is possible, collaboration is possible, free thinking is possible, and group debates is going to be possible, right? So these are the various benefits that we are getting out of flexible learning environments. So that is what flexible learning environment is going to happen. So this is the references. But apart from this, I wanted to share one more thing, like, we can also take our students for, field visits, right, where the students will see the practical scenario, So there is one Chinese proverb which says that, tell me, I will forget, right? Tell me, I will forget. That is the real-time physical classroom teaching learning which is happening. So whatever being a faculty, being a mentor, we are telling to our students into the classroom, there are highly chances that either they are going to be distracted or they have been distracted due to they lost their temper after a certain period of time if we extend our time. So that is where, and even whenever the classroom teaching is happening in terms of lecture method, we are not showing some practical scenario, we are not showing some practical viewpoints of any topics or any scenario. So that is where the chances of forgetting things is going to be very high, right? Wherein on the contrary, I will use one other word which is called show me, I may remember. So show me, I may remember means it is a practical exposures that we have to show, right? Either we can show some props, and practical theoretical things which can happen. We can show some process like, if the mentor is showing, some chemical mixtures to the students in the lab, or for commerce and management people, you can take out to your students to the industrial visit and wherein you can show them the manufacturing process, administrative process, accounting and managerial skills that every managers are portraying as a part of the fulfillment of the requirement and work, right? So that is called the showing the practical demonstration of the topic theories that we are teaching them into the classroom, right? So that is where show me, I may remember, right? So if you show them, they might remember, right? At least they will not forget that they went to some companies and they have seen this, right? But they may remember in a better manner, right? They might not be, because some things they will forget, but something they will remember. They will not forget the concept, right? That is for sure. But let's go for one step ahead. If we involve them into the process, let's say you are making some events and you are making some coordinators for this event, right? So the person who is coordinating this event for any particular topic or things that you have to take out as a part of conference, workshop, or anything that you have to do it, right? So the person who is doing it, right, the person who has involved himself or herself into the practical process, they will remember forever. I hope you all are agree with that, right? This is a psychological parameters as a part of teaching learning process that we must have to adopt in the classroom teaching learning part. Yes. So this is all the psychological things that is called, the name of this Chinese proverb, poet is Kolb, right? Kolb learning cycle, right? It is called Kolb learning cycle, right? Tell me, I will forget. Show me, I may remember. Involve me, I do remember forever, right? So this is what the Kolb learning cycle as a part of selection of innovative teaching learning process, right? So sometimes being a mentor, we are getting stuck up, right? That which method should I select? So you should always understand the utilization of every methods, right? And you should always align the utilization of every method with the objective for gaining out of the subject, right? You must have subject objective, right? So if your subject is demanding more practical application based knowledge, so you should always involve them into the process. Your subject is showing them practical demonstration of or topic understanding, you should always send them to the real time world and let them to observe the scenario, right? And this is the gradual process, right? You should not give them directly to do the things, right? Rather you should send them first to the corporate, let them observe, and once they will observe, they will understand, right? And if they understand, they will remember forever by incorporating those things for the future, right? So this is a step-by-step guidance that we have to give it to our students. Being a mentor, we should know this particular aspect, right? We should, and before that, we also have to, demonstrate the theories in front of their mind. Otherwise, without theory, how they can align those understanding into theoretical conceptual knowledge, right? So it is step-by-step process, right? But the point of our discussion of this entire session is we should not restrict our teaching learning process to the classroom, but we should go beyond the classroom. And these are the ways that we should always adopt, with the consideration that the objective of the topic and subject we always need to keep in our mind, right? And it may vary depend upon the person to person, geographical location to location, but that is a call of the mentor, the teacher who is actually aware about the scenario, and they would be better in a situations to take the decisions only when They have understood the usability and application of all this concept as a part of bringing overall effectiveness and productivity for the students when they will go for the industrial and corporate life. So that is what from my side. Thank you so much. I'm making this platform open for question answer. If you have any questions, please ask.